The second phase was built with department stores. This is a lifestyle center that we planned in Michigan, in Rochester Hills, Michigan. I'm a landscape architect and urban planner. And we planned this one in Michigan, and it's 350,000 square feet. It does about 400 square foot in sales. We did plan this to be a town center with civic and housing, but the city did not want any apartments, and they wouldn't let us go with a 3-story building. They said that's too urban for our city, so we were stuck just with retail at the first level. A lifestyle center just has retail. They have main streets, and if you squint just right, they look like a real town, but they're not. A town center has 4 uses: retail, office, civic, and residential. When you have all 4 uses, you're considered a town center. So the new buzzword in the industry, somebody said that earlier today, lifestyle centers are out. Yes, lifestyle centers are out. The new thing are town centers, where you put in a library, you put in a performing arts center, you put in residential, and City Place would be considered a town center. City Place was way ahead of its time when this was planned and when it was built. And town centers are in. Now, a lot of suburban developers still get the shakes when you mention anything urban. And so a lot of the suburban developers call these open air centers. That makes them feel better. So if somebody says they want an open air center, that's code for an urban walkable town center. And just smile and say, what a great idea. We're always putting in streets in our town centers, and usually we only put in parallel parking, because parallel parking is more beautiful than diagonal parking. And that, you'll notice that's what's here in City Place. City Place was designed by Richard Gibbs, he designed Meisner Park, one of the great urban retail architects in the country. And we always put in parking meters in our town centers, not because people like parking meters, customers hate parking meters, but they hate not being able to park more. And they will not go around the block 4 times looking for a place to park. And most of them will gladly pay 50 cents or $1 if they can park directly in front of the store. So in all the private town centers we do, we're putting in parking meters, and we give the money to charity. And we do enforce the meters. This is a town center I'm planning right now in Troy, Michigan. Troy is a complete suburb with no downtown, and we were hired to do this town center because the local realtors said they can't lease office space in Troy because it's too suburban. And you probably know this, the millennials don't like working in suburban office parks anymore. They hate the idea of having to drive to Chili's for lunch. Nothing against Chili's, but they find that boring. And you can't get that MIT or Stanford genius to go to a suburban office park. So Troy, the commercial brokers said we need a town center to lease office and apartments. And so they're building a town center, and this will be the Civic building at the end of the square. We don't know what it'll be yet, but we always put the best spot, the best location for the Civic building, and we're reserving it. It's either probably going to be a library or a performing arts center. When one business owner saw this sketch, he said, I'll donate $50 million for a performing arts center to be named after my wife. The city's still thinking about that a year later. But that's the power of these sketches. We're a little slow in Michigan. There are strategic and tactical things that you can do to outcompete the suburbs. The strategic things are, of course, have a master plan and have a form-based code. You probably don't know this, but Delray Beach success is really a result of a master plan that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Group did years ago. And everybody we interviewed in Delray Beach said it was the Treasure Coast plan that put our streets on a diet, that put in street trees, that did a form-based code that required high standards. So the first thing is to make sure you have a master plan and that you follow the master plan and that it's a good form-based code. The form-based code will tell you how high to do the buildings. And I found this very interesting. The form-based code in Delray Beach said that the buildings along Atlantic Avenue could only be 3 stories because they wanted to feel like a town, not a city. And the buildings off of Atlantic Avenue could be 4 stories. And so I asked all the developers, we just did a shopability study for them, and I said, how many of you really like the 3-story zoning? And individually, I met with them one-on-one, and every developer said, even though it cost me real estate, I love the 3-story code. Don't change it. Don't let 5 stories or 4 stories on Atlantic, because it'll change the ambience of the downtown. They will lose that X factor. So if you get a form-based code, have the backbone to stick to it. We have a form-based code in Michigan, my town, Birmingham, Michigan, and we only allowed 1 story. We hired Andreas Dewani to do a plan. At the time, we only allowed 1-story buildings, and they counted the basement as a story. We do basements in Michigan, so we had the world's only negative 1-story zone. And the developer in the city asked Dewani and me, why is nobody building in Birmingham? And the developer said, because you have negative 1-story zoning. So the developer said we need 5 stories to make it pencil out. The residents said we don't want 5 stories. So Dewani said, you can build 5 stories if it looks like it's 4 stories from the street. Just a very clever thing. And if you have retail on the first level, and if you build a high-quality building out of brick or stone. In Birmingham, the form-based code was an option. You could stick with the negative 1-story zoning if you want, or if you wanted to go taller, you had to follow the form-based code, which was very, very strict, and almost everybody followed it. The second strategic thing is to make sure you have anchors. And anchors can be department stores, it can be a pottery barn. This was an anchor for City Place. Historically, downtowns had anchors. The anchors were a press building, a 5 and dime, a department store. They had grocery stores, furniture stores, car dealers. Downtowns historically were full of department stores and anchors. It's interesting, I've yet to see a postcard of a pre-war downtown that has street trees. They didn't have street trees, they didn't have banners, they did have on-street parking, but they had lots of retail and lots of department stores, and lots of chains. The department stores brought people to the downtown on a regular basis, and if you were a shoe store, an independent shoe store, or luggage store, the best place to be would be next to the national chain or next to the department store, because they brought 3,000 or 4,000 people a day to the downtown. The new shopping center owners realize this, and they will not build a large center without a department store. And when you negotiate with a department store, you negotiate very weakly. You tell the department store that whatever they want, they can have. And so if the department store says, I want all the parking at my front door, you give it to them. That they want to be seen from the highway. All grocery stores want to be seen from the highway. The developer says, what a great idea, I was just thinking the same thing. And then he tells his planner, make sure they can be seen from the highway. You really have to give the anchor what they want. And anchors don't pay rent. Anchors, the department stores pay no rent, usually. And grocery stores pay half the rent of the inline tenants. Now, if you get a grocery store, sales will increase by 25%. A grocery store in a town center, in a shopping center, or in a mall, will increase all of the sales across the board by an average of 25%. So right now, every town center that we're doing wants a grocery store. Trader Joe's or Whole Foods or whomever. And this is a switch. 10 years ago, the Dirty Dozen retailers, Ann Taylor, Banana Republic, The Gap, Williams-Sonoma, Eddie Bauer, they're called the Dirty Dozen, would not allow you to put a grocery store in the center. Today, they're requiring it. So go after a grocery store. These are the average sales per square foot for the grocery stores in the country. Trader Joe's is the highest at $2,000 a square foot per year. We're working on a center in Gainesville, and we got Trader Joe's to open its 2nd store in Florida in our town center. This town center in Gainesville is interesting. It has a Whole Foods, a Publix, a Walmart, a Sam's, a Target, and 2 Publix grocery stores in one shopping center. They're huge eaters in Gainesville. They love to eat food. The new department stores are building small versions. This was the first mini Macy's built. This was a radical thing to do. And a lot of people said it won't work out, and maybe they were right, I don't know. But the new department stores like Target are opening 25,000 to 30,000 square foot stores. This is a new city Target. This is a new Target in Philadelphia. They're not putting Target's name on them when they're city stores. They're just putting their logo. This is a 30,000 square foot store in downtown Philadelphia, and they just opened another one 6 blocks away. They are going to the cities because the cities are under retail, and they sell home goods and groceries, etc. I'm not afraid of large, big box retail as long as it's designed well. This is a 200,000 square foot department store that's surrounded with small shops. So it only has about 25 or 30 feet. Oops, let me go over here. This is what we call the anchor wrap. Thank you. Oops. I can try to talk loudly if you like. I'm going to try that. Let me just try to talk loudly for a while. This is called the anchor wrap. This is where you take a large retailer and you surround it with small shops. This is the new prototype for Walmart. Walmart is opening very small 4-story stores in cities. This is in downtown Washington, D.C., and this is the new Walmart, 4 stories attached to a historic building. Now, most cities we work with say, Bob, we will not allow a Walmart in our downtown, but we will allow the same design if it's a Target. So, take that for what it's worth. Office workers support 25 square feet of retail per worker. So if you can get 1,000 office workers in your town center, and they were brilliant by building an office building here, 1,000 office workers supports 25,000 square feet of retail and restaurant directly. You have to have office workers in your town center. Another great anchor are public markets, like the Pike Street Market in Seattle. Public markets are virtual grocery stores. They're open every day. They have food, like prepared food, cheese, bread, baked goods, poultry, fish, cheeses, and these are virtual stores. And these are very, very popular. If you can have a public market in your downtown, you can have sales of 25% higher across the board. This is the public market in Charleston on the lower right. It's called the City Market. We helped revitalize that about 5 years ago. We had them put skylights in the market. If you have skylights in your store, sales go up at least 10%. So we always put skylights. You can always tell a Walmart on Google Earth because it's the store with the skylight every 20 feet on the roof. Because, why? Because it increases sales. This is the Oxbow Market in Napa, California. This is a really good example, if you have a medium-sized city, to copy the Oxbow Market. It's about 35,000 square feet in size, and it's the #1 tourist attraction in Napa. If you can build a public market in your city, it will become the #1 tourist attraction. The Charleston Market we worked on became Charleston's #1 tourist attraction in 4 months. It does over $2,000 a square foot in sales. It's extraordinary. Starbucks, of course, is a great coffee shop, can be a great anchor. Whole Foods can be a great anchor. Cinemas or performing arts centers can be great anchors. And post offices make wonderful anchors. Do all you can do to keep your post office downtown or to return at least the retail component downtown. And then libraries are wonderful anchors. A library brings about 1,200 people a day.
And we encourage libraries to be downtown. And that's one great thing that West Palm did is they kept the library downtown at the City Hall. Playgrounds make great anchors. We're putting playgrounds in all of our town centers because it brings young families. And then you really need to have some sort of square or plaza in your downtown. This is one in a new town center. This is in Atlanta called Avalon, and this is their town square. Unfortunately, in the new town centers, they make them out of astroturf, and they feel really phony. The only one that uses real grass is in LA. It's called the Americana, and they use real grass, but they have to resod it every 30 days because the grass wears out. And that's how much use they get. Market studies. Strategically, you have to have a market study, an accurate retail market study, and housing market study, and office studies if you're going to attract investment. A good market study will tell you how many square feet are supportable and what types of retail are supportable and what the sales will be. This is a typical market study that says, in this case, 6,500 square feet are supportable. It'll do I think that's $300 a square foot in sales. And this is important because rents are 8% of sales. And so by having a market-based market study, developers can anticipate what the rents will be and whether they can afford to come in here. And then you can use this as a leasing tool to attract new businesses into your downtown. A good trade area, a good market study will tell you the trade areas, the primary and secondary, where people come from that are going to go to your downtown. And then they'll tell you how many square feet of restaurants are supportable, etc. In this market study, we found that this downtown can support 328,000 square feet of retail, and that it would generate $380 a square foot in sales per year. This has precipitated millions of dollars of investment once this was published, because these studies are pretty expensive to do, and then you put them on your website, and developers, instead of having to cough up the money themselves, can use the study to determine whether they want to do investment. These are also helpful for your small businesses, because it'll tell them whom their customers are and where they can grow the business, where the growth opportunities are. If you have a strong shoe market for shoes, and you're an apparel store, you may decide to add a shoe department to your store. Tourists love to shop. We talked about this earlier. The number one thing tourists do when they go on vacation is shop. Tourists spend much more time now shopping than going to the beach or skiing or going to the resort. Now this is really surprising. And when tourists go on vacation, they like to only buy things at the same stores they buy things at home. They like to go through the independent retailers and browse and talk to the store owner and take up all their time, but they really won't buy much there. They really do the spending. And the reason for that really is that when they get home, they're buying gifts. And they want the person they're giving a gift to be able to return it if it's a wrong size or whatever, and they have the predictability. Tourists also do their primary school shopping while they go on vacation. That's why outlet malls are so successful. Yeah. Tenant mix. You should have a tenant mix strategy for your downtown. Ideally, where should the restaurants go? That depends on parking and visibility. If you can get a grocery store, where should the grocery store go? Where should your sporting goods stores go? Where should your shoe store go? You need an overall strategy. You'll never completely fulfill it unless you're a mall, but you need to have a strategy of what's going to go where. Then you can have a story to tell when you're presenting your downtown to developers. Like I said earlier, most of the downtowns we work in prohibit national chains. Nantucket does not allow national chains, and they accept the ones they like. So they have a Ralph Lauren, for example, which everybody loves. They say, well, that's not really a national chain. We're going to look the other way. And if you are a national chain, they couldn't outlaw them. They just said if you are a national chain, you can't use your logo and you can't wear your colors. You can't use your colors anymore. But I say, what's wrong with this store being a Gap rather than an independent retailer, as long as it is built to a high standard? And I could demonstrate that that Gap will bring more people downtown and that will help the independent retailers rather than not. Charleston's policy was to have the stores people like to shop at in your downtown. This is downtown Savannah. This is a Banana Republic store. But in Savannah, they have J. Crew, they have all the brands downtown, but they require them to be built to a very high standard, which isn't hard to do if you have high standards. Well, walkability. Strategically, you want to have a very walkable downtown. You want to be able to get from the parking garage to the main street. You want to be able to cross the shops, the streets, etc. Millennials very much like highly walkable downtowns. And you probably know about the Walk Score. That's an app on your phone. And it measures the walkability of anywhere in the United States from 0 to 100. And the better retailers right now want walk scores of 80 or higher. And most major real estate investment companies want walk scores of 85 or higher. This has a walk score of about 90 right here where we're standing. Clematis Street has a walk score of 95. That's an extremely high walk score. One of the highest in the country. Very few places have 100. And you should know your walk score. If you have a high walk score, you should promote it. If you don't have a high walk score, you should figure out how to modify your town to have a high walk score. When you have high walk scores, the other real estate's worth more money. This is a study by the Brookings Institute. And then we recommend strategically that you do what we call the shoppability study. We just did a shoppability study for Delray Beach, where we look at everything as it relates to shopping. Your zoning, your lighting, your streetscape, your parking, your tenant mix, your public safety. We look at every policy, and then we are silent shoppers. We spend months in your downtown walking around pretending that we're shoppers, and then we'll report back to you the challenges and opportunities that you have in your downtown. We found in Delray Beach, for example, that many of the sidewalks were too narrow for a stroller to walk along because the restaurants were creeping into the walk zone. And we noticed that people with strollers or wheelchairs had to walk in the street because the sidewalks were too narrow. So we'll go through and we'll give you maybe 100 or 200 things that you can do with your downtown to improve the shoppability, to make it easier for people to shop in the downtown. Delray Beach has a very high walk score, 92. This is one of the best cities, I think, in the United States. USA Today, the newspaper, asked me to rate the top 10 downtowns in the country, and I rated Delray Beach, Atlantic Avenue, as one of the top 10 in the country. It's really a great place, largely due to the Treasure Coast Master Plan and to very good policies. They have a very effective Downtown Development Authority and Downtown Development Director. Tactical practices. What can you do at a micro level to increase retail sales in your downtown? Sometimes it's just paint. This store owner was having very low sales. This is a little store on Cape Cod. So the store owner talked the city into painting the crosswalks to go directly to their front door. So when you cross the street and you look up, all of a sudden you have an urge to buy stationery. You don't know why. Oh, you're right in front of, and lucky you, you're right in front of the stationery store. So technical things are what we do in malls. You know, that's how we get you to turn left, how to turn right, we manipulate you. We apply those technical principles to downtowns. Another technical thing is to have beautiful handcrafted signs. We like A-frame signs. A-frame signs increase traffic in the stores by 30%. You should allow A-frame signs. But they should be handcrafted like this rather than the cheap ones you buy at the big box store. You should allow and encourage projecting signs. And you may want to have a storefront grant program where you can allow for these beautiful handcrafted signs. These give you the X factor, and these directly relate into a nice experience that will translate into higher sales. You should encourage storefronts to go through a design review committee so that they have nice signs and nice storefronts to achieve that X factor. We like to see projecting signs that are sculptural, that are three-dimensional. And in our form-based codes, we give you a bonus. We let you build a bigger sign if you go to the trouble of having a three-dimensional artist sign. And then it's nice to have letters that are projecting from the front of the building that give a nice shadow line. These are very subtle things that translate to more traffic and higher sales. Streetscape. You should have civic art in your downtown. There's studies that show if you have sculpture and a lot of civic art, retail sales can be as high as 30% higher. And the art should respond to whether you're a hamlet or a village or a town or a city. This civic art is in Wasilla, Alaska, where we just did a study. And that's perfectly appropriate for Wasilla, Alaska. It probably would be a little out of a place on Worth Avenue. But the sculpture should fit the setting. If you're a hamlet or a village, you should have really inventions like this. You should have a streetscape that is easy to maintain. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. This is Worth Avenue in Palm Beach, and they just have concrete sidewalks and grass. That's their streetscape and beautiful palm trees. The concrete sidewalks, though, are power washed every week. And they were designed by a skilled landscape architect with saw-cut joints, and they're really beautiful. But it's not expensive paving. It's $3 a square foot concrete that's very well maintained. Rodale Drive in Beverly Hills also just has concrete. It doesn't have expensive brick pavers, but is maintained to a very high standard. Street trees increase retail sales by 12 to 20%. And where it's hot, you should have, I'll give you a big freebie, you should have shade trees where it's hot. Write that down. That's a shot. That's one of the things that makes Delray Beach work so well, is they plant the right kinds of trees. And I just read a study that said people are willing to pay 15% more for the same item if it's got beautiful shade trees. They feel that they're getting better value. So please put in trees, but be careful what kinds of trees you do. Under no circumstances should you plant crepe myrtle in your main street. These are crepe myrtles, and look what they do. When they're full, they block the storefront, and they kill the retail sales. You shouldn't put street trees directly in front of the sign of the store. And that always happens if you just do a symmetrical plan. You should have an asymmetrical plan. These trees should have been located to the right, so they don't block the storefront. Little tactical things like that kill retail sales. We love to see dining decks. Dining decks are where you have a wood platform in a parking space. If you have narrow sidewalks, the city can rent a parking space for dining decks. That shouldn't have more than 2 per block because it can't work to retail. And it's a nice way of having dining decks. This is my town, Birmingham, Michigan, and here's our little dining deck, and here's our main street. It's a 2-lane main street, and we have 24,000 cars.